How's your Yardin doing? Did you start one this year or did you just keep cutting your grass? I want to know. So I have had a really fun experiment this year, just having a garden in the middle of this little bitty yard. And I made some mistakes along the way. So I would like to share them after I eat this bean. Big old harvest. Let me tell you, the beans finally bounced back with enough stuff around them that the rabbits didn't constantly eat them down, but they taste really good straight out of the garden. I honestly haven't had beans other than from the store, and they're just so sweet and good. So let's talk about the rest of the garden, besides the one bean that I get off my plant. All right, as you can see, we've got a couple of scale watermelons going. They're probably not going to fill out in time. There really wasn't enough water, and also the mistake that I was talking about, I put down the bags of topsoil. It was terrible, terrible topsoil from the store. And then I put the compost on top, and that kind of helped, but it wasn't great. And when we dig through on here, man, let me just grab a shovel. Let me show you this. Good. That's a good bean. So, you can see the compost layer on top, and then the topsoil that I put on top, and then the actual soil from the yard, just filled with worms, really dark. I've talked about it in previous videos, just how good it was, but I actually hindered my garden by putting this crappy topsoil on top of the normal yard. So next year I won't be doing that. Mistakes were made, but we learned. So I neutered my garden's ability to grow stuff. So that's a good bean. So the watermelons, it took them a while to get their roots through that crappy bagged topsoil, but once they did, they started to take off and no problems. And really the same for everything else. You can see how well the kale has done. The let's see, I'm gonna have to, basil. The basil was the biggest basil before we chopped it down. The basil was just this huge mound. I have never grown basil that large before, and it's just because it got through that crappy topsoil and got into the actual yard. We've got some, I forget the names of them, nitrogen fixers here that I'll come back once I remember the name. And also the same for the pumpkins. It took them a while to get through that topsoil. Unfortunately, we did have a few pumpkins and I didn't do a good enough job watering them. So the vines ended up dying where they were. And then the new ones that have come up, we've got some, I'm guessing, rabbits coming up. And every time we get a small one formed, you know, something that's like that big, they just eat them right off the vine, which is to be expected. I'm not hungry for pumpkins or anything this year, so it's not that big of a deal to be feeding the rabbits, but just something that ended up happening. Now, I did poke a couple of black raspberries into here, which I see something has been digging. So I'm gonna push that soil back in, but we got some black raspberries that they're gonna grow up. You know, this first year they're gonna be real tiny. Next year they'll send out some shoots like this big, and then the year after that they'll be doing some real big ones. But we don't want those roots to get dry, so we're just gonna kind of fill that back in while we're looking. There we go. But they seem to be really happy so far. There was no transplant shock. I put them in not too long ago. What else we got in the yard? I've been putting a lot of natives in. We have a pear tree over here that we're going to put in somewhere. What is this? A sunrise pear, which I'm not sure what that is, but this nice cool weather where it's kind of rainy all the time is just perfect weather for transplants like this. We also have another native here. Not sure what it is, some sort of nice flower that blooms late. And while we're out, let's sneak over to the neighbor's yard and let me show you another native that I put in. So our jujubes are doing decent. When this one didn't really bounce back this year, but next year it should. This jujube, the Lee, actually did bounce back. If y'all remember, this one had lost all of its leaves, and all the leaves came back really nice and just enough to where it's actually going to be decent. What I need to do is get rid of a lot of this grass so that the nutrients aren't stolen by the grass. But the yard is so moist that they're doing all right. They're doing all right. All kinds of asters this year. There's a aster high there. Just been doing pretty well. And then here's the pawpaw. I'm not sure if y'all know what a pawpaw is, but it has these little round fruits, and even small plants, once this gets, you know, maybe 5 or so feet high, it'll start putting off a pretty heavy fruit production for the size of them. And we have two because they like to be in pairs. They like to pollinate each other. They will self-pollinate, but they work a lot better if it has a friend right next to it, because that fruit will have, you know, 12 seeds inside. It'll go into the ground. You can see that something's already been stomping on it. Looks like deer may be out here. And yeah, so they'll grow up in groups. And these, it tastes like bananas. It's a really interesting fruit, just little like soft, delicious banana fruits. So it's also native. So it loves being in this sort of like wet topsoil. It also loves being underneath the oak tree that we have it planted next to, although the oak isn't shading it yet. This is an understory plant, and I have it on the north side of the tree as well. So, well, not this tree. It's not on the north side of this tree. It's more like on the north or easternly side. But we also have this big sycamore right here, and it's in the shade of that. So it'll get a little bit of morning sun, and then we'll get full shade from that sycamore, and then we'll get, yeah, maybe a little bit of light peeking through there. So I figured that this would be a perfect spot for the pawpaw, which is an understory tree. It'll still get plenty of airflow. It'll still get plenty of morning light, so it'll grow real nice. But it won't be absolutely beaten to death by the summertime high noon sun. You know, that's the most of it. I'm still tasting that delicious bean right now. And there's more work out here to do. Oh, maybe grab a wild strawberry while we're out. This is a strawberry bush. This is not your typical strawberry. Or, let's see here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, these little guys. These little guys right here. These are wild strawberries. Look at that really interesting fruit to them. Just a different shape than what you would expect, and something that the wildlife like. And it's got a big seed in there. There's a lot of it's sweet, but it still has, you know, you can taste that it has a lot of nutrients inside. Tastes like dirt, kind of. Ooh. Flavorful. All right. Those are pretty good, though. Those are pretty good. Well, I do thank you for tuning in. I've been having fun in the yard. If you got any questions about it, of course, give me a holler. If it bothers you that I've got a garden in my front yard, you let me know. You give it to me. It's kind of nice being able to just come out here and eat. So, as always, I do thank you for tuning in. Have a good day.